Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Welcome to the Think Factory's Workplace podcast, powered by OGC Solutions. My name is Alka Bahal. I'm a partner with Outside General Counsel Solutions and the chair of our Corporate Immigration Services Group, and I'll be your host today. I am very excited to have with me here Deepak Shrivastava, co-founder of Sunrise AI, providing AI-powered customer intelligence. Welcome to the podcast, Deepak.
Thank you, Alka. Appreciate you having me.
It's my pleasure. Can you tell us a little bit about Sunrise AI to start off?
No problem. And thank you. I know I love doing these sort of conversations because they're just a lot more organic. So appreciate you doing all the hard work and the heavy lifting here. But to answer your question, Sunrise AI is a customer intelligence platform. We're purpose-built specifically for go-to-market teams. We have a acute focus on post-sales teams. So think folks like customer success managers, account managers. What we do for them is unify a lot of their enterprise data, and that lives across their CRMs, their support platforms, payment systems, data warehouses. And then we layer on proprietary AI to help those customer success and account management teams actually know their customers better. So think of it like a mini ChatGPT, but trained and fine-tuned just on your company's data. So reps can ask anything from which customer is at churn risk to what feature requests are trending, and they get real answers in real time. And that's kind of what we do. And I'm a serial entrepreneur, and by way of intro, in a former life, I was an investment banker, spent some early days at Dropbox, and now I'm just in the business of building and scaling companies, which has been a ton of fun and obviously just a wonderful privilege.
That's really exciting. And so Sunrise AI is not your only ongoing adventure. You've got some other things in the pipeline as well, right?
Oh, in the pipeline and simultaneously, but I would have to say Sunrise is definitely my quote unquote day job.
Fair enough. Tell me a little bit about your previous companies, not your first rodeo, as they say, with launching a company.
Yeah. So after what feels like a lifetime ago, spending about a decade in investment banking at Morgan Stanley, and I spent the bulk of my career actually on the West Coast and in Hong Kong out in Asia. I'm a snobby native New Yorker, so finally back here on my home turf building this latest company. But my previous stints in the startup space both involved travel tech. Or travel/entertainment. I had a solopreneurship about 15 years ago where I essentially had a DJ and music entertainment agency. I was bringing talent from mostly Los Angeles and Vegas to venues across Asia. So think of clubs like places in Shanghai, Taipei, Bangkok, Hong Kong, New Delhi. So that was tons of fun, but I didn't want to be the 40-year-old at the club, so I moved back to the States. And my next couple of businesses were in travel and hospitality. I was a co-founder at a company called Porter & Sale, which essentially we built mobile apps for luxury hotels and served as a upsell platform to help their guests extend their stays, upgrade their stays, and book additional amenities at the hotels and resorts that we worked with. In a different iteration, I also was the CEO at a company called Hotel Credits, which essentially was a glorified Groupon for a lot of those same luxury hotels that we used to work with. And this was in COVID times where folks could get access to heavily discounted gift certificates to stay at these wonderful properties and with elongated expiration dates, no blackout dates. So that was tons of fun. And this is my next business, Sunrise AI, which is headstrong in the enterprise B2B and AI space.
And what drew you into the AI space?
Well, honestly, this was, and thankfully, there's such a tailwind for all folks that are building in AI, especially over the last couple of years. But I had the luxury to link up with Dr. Andrew Ng and his AI fund. Andrew is a Stanford comp sci professor. He's built a bunch of different businesses. He's the godfather of AI, and this is all sort of pre-ChatGPT fervor. But he has a venture studio which takes, or rather works with entrepreneurs like myself to help incubate and launch companies in the space. So I had the privilege to work with the AI Fund a couple of years back, and this is really where we developed the concept of Sunrise AI.
Oh, very interesting. And where did the name come from?
Honestly, the name is really very let's just say it's extremely practical. The URL sunrise.ai was cheap and available. And number two, I really and this is from lessons learned from my previous stints in the entrepreneurial space, but there's always you can always plan on pivoting what your business is ultimately. So really was looking for a name that was not only aspirational, like Sunrise, but something that could be a little bit ambiguous as well in terms of the type of business or customers or sectors that we focus on. So with all that sort of factored in, Sunrise as a name came to the top of the list.
It makes sense. So leaving the door open for some flexibility there.
100%.
So you've been in many different leadership roles. Tell me, what do you think are the three most essential traits for effective leadership in today's workplace?
I think I'll start with agility. Agility for me, and that can have multiple different applications, right? Agility to work with different types of teams, agility to work with different types of spaces, and then also an agility to change your approach in terms of solving problems, right? And those are the three I really want to focus on, and that's the underscoring sort of current here is agility, and that can mean a lot of different things, but I'll give a few examples in each of these three sort of categories. In terms of team, I've had the privilege of working in large teams, large settings, large institutions like a Morgan Stanley, 50,000 folks spread globally, and knowing how to sort of navigate everything from red tape to knowing who your stakeholders are, knowing who your boss is, making your boss's life easier, knowing how to manage multiple folks on a team. That is a skill set that is very much learned. But at the same time, I look at, or I juxtapose my current sort of day-to-day. We're an extremely lean team, just a couple of folks, and knowing how to coordinate with my co-founder, facilitate a project or a customer conversation forward. It just requires a different muscle with a much leaner team versus trying to navigate a much larger organization. So having the agility to work in both small and large teams, I think is a great skill set to build, a great muscle to sort of flex in anyone's career. The second thing I would say is agility in terms of space, then the sectors you work with. It's always great to build up a rapport around a certain industry and build expertise there. But I think the magic in sort of sustaining a longer career and being effective, doing different things, really requires trying to apply that sector knowledge and see what skills and see what currents and trends can be applicable to other spaces. So having the ability to sort of take a step back and not just be granular in looking at one certain industry, like finance for me, which was very much the behemoth that sort of overrode the first part of my career, but applying some of the stuff that I learned, whether it was analytical skills or even my engineering mindset from my undergrad days, to other spaces, whether it be travel, entertainment, or today, AI, straight hardcore technology. That's been, I think, a really important skill set to know and leverage when it comes to agility. And then the third one is, I forgot what the third one was. What did I mention, Elka?
You said agility, and then I don't know what the third one. I don't know that you mentioned the third one.
Space. I thought I mentioned the third one, but hey, if I remember, I'll come back to it.
Fair enough. So you bring a very interesting perspective to the workplace. Most people do tend to stick in one industry, and you've taken skills and leverage them into multiple different industries. And I'm sure that influenced your leadership style and how that's evolved. How do you think your leadership style influences the workplaces that you lead? Do you think your leadership style is different than others? Is it sort of similar? Do people react to you differently?
Great question. I don't know if I'm doing anything differently, but I do try to keep a few different tenets in mind when I approach leadership. And I think there's different qualities of leadership that are applicable in different situations, right? So, for example, one of the things that I think I always try to keep in mind is how am I being the most effective in terms of enabling others, right? Whether it's a partner, a customer, a manager, or folks that I'm managing directly, what is it that I can do to kind of keep them moving where I can't be a gatekeeper? So in one sense, and perhaps I look at this in a very rudimentary sports sense, but how do I play defense in the sense that I don't want to be a blocker or a gatekeeper. So I need to make sure I'm removing myself from keeping things moving forward. And there's an interesting balance in terms of enabling folks that you're working with to be as autonomous as possible. I don't believe that people love being micromanaged, but they do love guidance and they do want clear direction in terms of what your own expectations are, right? And that could be managing up or managing down or even managing a customer, right? Setting expectations, what you want done or what's going to be helpful to you is important. So other work streams for other folks and other people that you're partnering with and stakeholders can move the ball forward. So I think understanding that dynamic is sort of number one. But for me, I also like to think of having folks that are more ownership-like. So I've enjoyed being a partner, a leader, a customer, whether I'm dealing with someone who's paying me a bill or whether someone a vendor that I'm paying them. But I think it's important to give them kind of agency. And what I mean by that is you don't want to be extremely particular in putting parameters that are going to constrict them, because you may in the near term get what you want directly, but I like to keep the borders open, so to say, so they can be creative, right? They can do things that you may not have thought about, because I'm definitely not smart enough, intelligent enough, or knowledgeable enough to know everything by any means. So allowing people to sort of flex their own creative muscles to bring their skill sets to the table, I think that's the true unlock. So my leadership ability focuses on those two things. One is playing defense, i.e., I don't want to be a blocker and helping you get your job done. So what I think about it from the perspective of making sure I'm removing myself as any potential gatekeeper. And then number two, playing offense and enabling them to run with the ball, so to say, and do things that I may not even have thought of that could ultimately contribute in a very constructive and synergistic way.
So it sounds like you're looking for people who have these abilities and then can rise to the level, and you want to promote them and have them be the best they can be. What sort of challenges do you find in recruiting talent like that? Do you think that you're looking for particular skills, abilities, attitude? How do you identify those folks?
Yeah, great question. And you're absolutely right. I think the key is in recruiting and surrounding yourself with the right folks that subscribe to this sort of philosophy, right? And I've made tons of mistakes in terms of hiring. But one thing that I keep learning or relearning is to hire slow, fire fast, right? A very cliche term, but I think there's continued and sustainable truth to that sort of phrase, right? And I'll give you an example, right? Even with this business, before we pivoted to what we're doing now, essentially AI-empowered GTM or go-to-market enablement for the customers that we work with, we were attacking a very different space. And I did have a previous co-founder that we parted ways with. And I realized, and as I sort of did a internal post-mortem as to what may have gone differently or what went wrong, quite frankly, one of the things that I realized is this person, while extremely talented and knowledgeable, just wasn't nimble, right? And I think that agency in terms of being nimble, being opportunistic, that's a shared value that I look for in anyone I want to work with. And that includes not only people to hire, but people to work with from a customer perspective as well, right? How nimble is this person or this team because things are moving fast. Things are always moving fast. And if you're stuck in a very stale framework, there's a values misalignment that really difficult to work around. And ultimately, those goals can diverge. And if there's divergent goals with a teammate, with someone that you're working with, then it's very difficult to kind of get to where you want to get to, whether that's achieving a specific KPI or just growing a company. So I think I look for nimbleness, right? Your job description today might be very different a month from now, 10 months from now, a year or two from now. And I really look for that person's ability or agency for change and to be nimble. And I recognize that's definitely more from the vantage point of an early stage growth company. But that's the space that I've been living in for the greater part of the last decade.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's really your forte right there.
Correct.
So what trends do you see shaping the workplace, and how are you as a leader adapting to those changes, which, as you correctly identify, everything is moving at lightning speed these days?
Yeah. And it's interesting that, what's changed, I think, today versus say times previous, but I kind of go back to, from undergrad, my liberal arts education, where the point of a liberal arts education is not to necessarily learn a specific subject or trade, but it's actually to learn how to learn. And I think that can't be more important or critical than today, because things are changing. Your whatever learned or vocational skill set you may have picked up can get very stale if it's not stale already. And the important kind of skill set to know is to know how to learn. Do you have, again, going back to the word agency, do you have the agency to quote unquote figure it out? And if it's something that one doesn't know or doesn't know how to tackle or, get to the finish line, do you have the ability to find out how to do it? So I really look for in a person, to whomever I work with, does this person like and enjoy learning? And do they have a natural curiosity in terms of trying to figure things out? So I think it's less about going down a checklist of, does this person know XYZ skill set? Does this person know how to code in this language? Does this person have experience doing ABC? I think it's more about, is this person organically driven to figure it out? And I think that goes back to, I guess, the theme here, what I've been talking about and rapping about over the last 10, 15 minutes around agility, around nimbleness.
That's a really great insight. I can even apply that to myself. In immigration law, I've been doing it for about 30 years, and I feel like I'm learning something new every day because things are constantly changing.
Yeah.
And if you don't learn, you don't, not only do you not grow, but you can't function.
Totally. And that's applicable like in any industry, in any job, at any level.
Yeah. Things are definitely moving fast, especially in the AI space. I mean, you're like in a small and nimble entity. You're in a fast-moving place. So I imagine everything is sort of dynamic and ever-changing for you in the workplace. How important do you think mental health support is in the workplace? That could be things like work-life balance, well-being, those types of things. Do you think those things are essential, or are they just nice to haves?
I think they've become ever more essential. I think they've always been essential. I think, unfortunately, just the way industry has grown for the past, century here in the country, these types of considerations were never accountable to your employer. But I think it just makes right business sense for employers to own this, right, and have accountability towards the mental health of their employee base, right? And I think about it, and I recognize I'm biased. For example, my partner, she's a therapist, right? And I subscribe. I mean, mental health is very prevalent in our house because of the nature of her job. But I think about an experience I had when I had first gotten married, and I'm making this personal because mental health is personal, but it is equal to your job productivity ultimately, if we're being very selfish from a business owner's perspective, right? But just like, for example, my wife, she asked me when we got married, she said, hey, we should start going to couples therapy. And immediately in my mind, I was like, wait, is something wrong? Like, is everything okay? Like, I didn't even realize, like, why do we have to go to therapy? I don't understand. And she put it to me in a way that I could very much understand, or at least at the time could subscribe to, which is, you don't start working out and looking at your physical health once you get diabetes, for example. Like, you start working out because you don't want to get diabetes, right? And just as you're flexing your physical self, shouldn't we dedicate the appropriate amount of time and effort to your mental self as well, right? Let's start focusing on your own mental health before or in advance of things going wrong, or when you come across some sort of emotional trial or turbulation, you're equipped to handle those things with ease and speed and in the best and optimized way possible. So I equate this to bringing it back to more tangible business sense, right? If we're in a society where businesses and employers are happy to cover a gym membership, and that's a perk or a benefit, I equate that to, then you should be willing to cover therapy sessions and look after the mental health and well-being of your employees. And I think it's a win-win for all.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that. And that's a great perspective that your wife brings to the table. I like that. What do you think are some key elements leaders can work into their workplace culture that keep for a positive environment, especially in this world where everybody is hybrid? Some people are coming in, some people are not coming in. You may be completely remote, and that poses its own set of challenges.
Yeah, that's a great question, Alka. I think of it as it's less of a policy issue, right? So I'm not here to debate whether, remote work is better or hybrid is better or everyone should be back in the office 5 days a week or more. I think that businesses and especially technology companies and startups and early stage growth companies should choose the path that they want or they see best. And that very much depends on a case by case basis, where your product is at, what's the nature of your team, where is your team physically? Are they skewed to be folks that are unmarried or not with children, or are they family folks, right? So I don't think there's a one size fits all answer to that type of culture. But what I do strongly believe in is, as a business owner, if you have an idea or a preference as to what culture you want to build, for example, if you want to build a culture where people do take vacations or people do feel like they have the flexibility to say, hey, you know what, on Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m., I want to take an hour to go to yoga class. Or every Thursday, late afternoon, I want to pick my daughter up from school and take her to ballet. Then great, like that's something that should be welcomed. But it needs to go beyond just mandating it in policy and allowing quote unquote, unlimited vacation or flexible hours. What needs to happen, most importantly, versus what the written word in any policy or mandate is that business owner, management of that company needs to emulate that. So whatever culture you want your employees to subscribe to, you yourself need to be very visible in surfacing that, right? So for example, I do take vacation. And when I take vacation, I am completely unplugged. So much to say, like, I've gone to the extreme of deleting Slack and Gmail from my phone. So I'm prohibited personally from emailing or even receiving emails. The team sees that. The team knows that if I'm gone for X amount of days, I am really gone. I am unplugged. And then they feel comfortable doing the same so they can get the right break for themselves, right? Or, for example, if I do want to go pick up my daughter from school X days a week and take her to swimming or ballet or gymnastics, they see that blocked off on my calendar. We have an open calendar policy. They can see on my calendar that that's exactly what I'm doing in the middle of the day. So that then gives themselves the wherewithal and flexibility and freedom to understand and know, hey, this is something that I can also take advantage of as well. So instead of just saying, hey, you should be able to do this, but they see me as the founder not doing it, there's a big disconnect there. So ultimately, like, moral of the story for me is whatever your policy is, whatever your culture you want to employ, you yourself need to emulate that and have it be very visible to your whole employee base.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Certainly, you can tell employees one thing, but if it has, sort of a negative undertone to it or a negative consequence, it's not going to be taken advantage of. But if you're living and breathing it, it's a lot easier for the employees to emulate that.
1,000%, right? Like I even go so far as to if and look, I'm technology startups are hard. They require me to have, or inevitably my business is always on my mind, even at random times at 11 p.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. sometimes, right? And that's great. I enjoy it, right? But at the same time, if I think of something and I want to send an email out to my team, then I'll make sure I'm not doing it at 1 a.m., right? Because that subliminally, do they feel like they have to respond back at that time? Do they feel that they have to be on? Do they feel they have to check email at that time? My expectation is definitively not. And I think you have to ask yourself, some founders do. They want folks like that. And that's great. That's okay. That's not the culture I want to build for our team. So I make sure, for example, I may write that email at 11:30 p.m. at night, but I'll schedule it to go out in the morning, not at 11:30 p.m. tonight. So I'm bothering an employee with that, right? So again, it's these little things that I think actually go a long way in trying to establish the culture you ultimately want to manifest.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. So what does the future look like for you? Tell me, what are we looking at, say, for the rest of 2025? And then do you have new projects on the horizon that you're planning on tackling?
Look, for the rest of 2025, look, we're heads down. We want to continue to build this business. We've been really lucky to be working with some great customers and large brands and logos. So I want to make sure that what we've been building for them and what we've been deploying for them really works and adds value to them. And those proof points mean a lot to me personally, quite frankly, and to continue to onboard more and more customers. It's fun to build a business. It's fun when things are quote unquote working. It's even more fun to tackle problems and help bring value to our customers. So for the rest of the year, definitively, I'm not looking at anything else but building our customer base, keeping our customers happy, building the team as well, keeping them happy, and just really enjoying ourselves, right? And if I'm thinking about what my own personal mile marker is, if I can wake up on Monday morning or lay my head down to rest on Sunday night and not dread the next morning, like that's a huge win, right? And for me, like, day to day, if I'm not looking at the clock, wondering when this day is going to end, that's another big win. That means I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And I would love for everyone I work with, again, my co-founder, employees that we work with, customers that we work with, like at the end of the day, this should be fun. We should enjoy doing what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now. I want to keep doing it for the rest of 2025. To answer your other question about other projects, we're always opportunistic. There's always fun stuff. It's a great big world. There's always fun things to do and to explore. So, I'm sure there'll be things that are very appealing to look at and explore. But for now, like building this business, building Sunrise AI has been tons of fun, and we're excited to keep building and scaling.
That's terrific. It sounds like you're looking after your own mental health as well as that of your team. So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Look, I think. Well, I mean, look, if you're not happy, if you're not in a great place, both emotionally and mentally, then what's the point? You gotta make sure you're good before you can help others.
Absolutely true. And a lot of people, I think, tend to forget that.
1,000%.
Well, thank you, Deepak. This has been absolutely wonderful. I've enjoyed our conversation. Do you want to let our listeners know where they can find out more about Sunrise AI and you?
Yeah, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, Deepak Shrivastava. I'm always, my DMs are open. I love connecting and meeting new folks, especially those folks that are trying to build businesses or look at how to elevate their own businesses using AI. So it's always fun to meet and connect and network with other folks. And appreciate you, Alka, for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for being on. You are definitely a fount of knowledge, and I hope folks reach out. I know you have a lot of information you can share and so much experience in the business area. So today we've had Deepak Shrivastava with us. Thank you all for joining us for the Think Factory Workplace podcast. I'm Alka Bahal, signing off. Until next time.